I'm part of the programming staff here, and on behalf of the Newport Beach Public Library, I would like to welcome you to this evening's program featuring local author Kathi Koll. I want to be sure to thank the Friends of the Library whose generous funding has allowed us to have our local author series. Our program this evening will include Kathi's presentation. There will be a time for Q&A, so be thinking of any questions you might want to ask Kathi. And then if you didn't get an opportunity beforehand, books will be available for purchase and signing at the conclusion of the program. If you could please double check your cell phones and make sure that they are set to silent, we would appreciate that. Well, I am absolutely thrilled to get to introduce our guest author to you this evening. Kathi Koll was married to real estate developer Donald Koll until he passed away in 2011. And if you grew up in Orange County like I did, the Koll Company is a familiar name that you'd see all over and on the most beautiful buildings and high-rises. In fact, something that I discovered after we invited Kathi to be a guest author here was that 25 years ago, the Koll Company built this very building. Yeah. I can't help but think how fitting it is that as we are celebrating our 25th year anniversary of the Newport Beach Public Library, that we have the honor of hosting Kathi as she presents her book that was inspired by caring for a man who was so instrumental in building this building. Kathi does such a beautiful job telling her story in her memoir. She's so real and so personal. By the end of it, she feels like a close friend. She continues to support and advocate for caregivers through her foundation, the Kathi Koll Foundation. And in this time of recognizing strong women, Kathi is just that. She really is a kick-ass kind of girl. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Kathi Koll.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. And I want to especially thank, where did she go? Terry. Thank you so much. And Natalie for all the work you've done to make this happen tonight. I really appreciate it. I especially want to thank my friends and my family, because without them, I don't think I could have ever done what I did during the 6.5 years and even today. I mean, they're my rocks. So I want to thank them especially. And I also have to warn you, I'm not used to speaking to a large group. So you kind of have to bear with me a little bit. But I will say, as a child, when I go to the library, the librarian used to always say, Kathi, you are talking too much. You have to be quiet. And here I am in the library getting to talk very loudly. So that's kind of fun. A whole new twist for me. Anyway, just a little bit of a background. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I live in Newport Beach now. And every year growing up, all I did was dream about the 2 weeks I was going to spend with my family on Balboa Island. So lucky for me, I'm here now, and I never take it for granted. I'm a mother of 3, and all 3 of my children are here tonight. And I'm a proud grandmother of 9. And one of my grandchildren is here. One's on his way, but I don't know if they'll make it with all the traffic. And by the way, the story that Terry shared about Don building this building, I just want to tell you, it just reminded me. He used to brag all the time and say, well, you know, I built the Newport Beach Public Library, and it was, you know, such a new type of building, and the way the roof went. Anyway, I heard the story a million times. So one day I'm driving down Avocado. It is pouring rain. It is raining so hard you can hardly look out the window. So anyway, I called him at his office, and I said, Don, did you notice it's really raining hard? Yeah, you know. Well, I'm just on Avocado. I'm in front of the library, and there's lots of plastic tarps on top of the roof. And he goes, oh, shit, I gotta go. I mean, I'm gonna get phone calls. So that was the end of that. So anyway, I'm here this evening to share a bit of my book. It's not a how-to book, but a memoir that shares my experiences growing up in Los Angeles, the journey I've experienced a few times during my life as a caregiver, and how I'm now experiencing a new period in my life of uncharted waters. Also, I decided when you read the book, and some of you have read the book, I decided I would be very open because, some of the things I write about are a little embarrassing to me, but I just figured it was a waste of time unless I said some of the things I did, because that's the only way someone in a caregiving situation is going to see what life is really like and how they feel. If my story inspires anyone, I feel I have accomplished my goal. It's not a how-to, but more of a story of challenges that proves that one can still enjoy life and find rainbows. Why did I write this book? At one time, my answer would have been, I don't know. Throughout my colorful life, friends have said, you've got to write a book. I think of some of my fun experiences, but always circle around to who'd care. Now, I hope people who have found themselves in the complex situation of being a caregiver will find hope in my words. My story is unique, but so are all of your stories. Being a caregiver, no matter what economic circumstance you come from, is a badge of courage that no one should have to wear. It eats at our hearts and the depths of our being. Caregivers are definitely number 2, but in reality, they should be number 1. Throughout my presentation, I'm going to read a few passages from my book. Not too long, you don't have to worry. Okay. Chapter 4, The Day My World Stood Still. October 27, 2005, the day that changed everything. The peak of the mountain, or was it the bottom of the sea? I had 2 lives with Dawn, and this day was the dividing line. Every moment of that day is etched into my memory, starting with waking up in Dawn's arms. That afternoon changed everything. Now, do me a favor. If all of you for a second could close your eyes. Just close your eyes just for a couple of seconds. And I want you to imagine yourself walking down the beach. And I want you to think about how warm the sand is between your toes, and you can hear children laughing. You can hear the waves crashing. It's a wonderful, beautiful, sunny California afternoon. Now open your eyes. You don't know anyone in this room. You have people in your face saying all sorts of things, and you're saying, leave me alone, get away from me. Who are you? And then you realize no one can hear you. No one's listening to you. Well, that's what happened to my husband. He was locked in. He woke up after his stroke, and he was completely paralyzed from the neck down, sort of like Christopher Reeves. He could not walk, he could not talk, and he could not breathe on his own without a respirator. And it was the first time in my life I saw fear in the eyes of my Rock of Gibraltar. The doctors gave Dawn less than 24 hours to live, but Dawn and I knew differently. I said, okay, Dawn, let's not say we're fighting a war. Let's look at this as a sporting event. If you want to be on the winning team, give me 1 blink for yes and 2 blinks for no. He gave me the biggest 1 blink I've ever seen. That day was the first day of the next 6.5 years of my life as a caregiver. The doctors used to say to me, Kathi, you got to slow down. Your life now is going to be a marathon. It's not going to be a sprint. I had no idea what they were talking about. I had never even been with a person that was disabled. A passage from chapter 6. This is 18 months after Dawn's stroke. Chapter 6, our new normal. When am I going to wake up? I was crying, sweating, screaming. I couldn't breathe. I want to wake up. I want out of this nightmare. I'm sick of people saying, you're so strong. I could never be so strong. I don't want to be so strong. I don't want this to happen to me. What do you think I'm going to do, people? What choice do you think I have? I felt like I was in a nightmare, but I couldn't escape because I was awake in my new reality. I had no idea what that meant or what lay ahead for me, but I was awake and I couldn't go back to the life I knew. It was about then when I realized it was time to move on. I needed to create a new normal. One of the doctors said to me something very important that I will never forget. He said, you know, Kathi, make sure that Don isn't just living to exist. Make sure he's existing to live. And think about that. It's a huge difference. And I thought, what does that mean? How can we do this? And I started thinking, what did we used to like to do before he had a stroke? Well, I want to figure out how we can still do it again. Number one, he liked to work. That was always his favorite thing, building libraries. So he liked to work. So I made sure that he was at the office, his partners were there, everyone knew he was in charge. Crazy thing is, he'd have me reading all these documents every day, and at the end, I'd say, okay, you want me to read it again? No, he'd mouth, because he got it the first time. It's just, I didn't get it. So I'd go in the other room and read it like 3 times to figure out what in the heck this thing was about. Then one of the things we used to love to do was dance. And so I thought, okay, we can still dance. My really good buddies would come over to the house and we'd have a few cocktails, and like sort of back in junior high school, we'd all get on the patio and start dancing, except I would spin Don around in the wheelchair. And it was fantastic. It was giving him a life. The other thing we always liked to do was go to the movies, okay? It was a little different, but we had the best seats in the house. We had the handicap seats. I think the most important thing I found with someone in Don's position was that it was important to always have something to look forward to. I would show him the calendar every day. We'd talk about his schedules. But when he knew someone was coming to visit the next day, or we were going to get in the van and go to Newport Beach, or because we lived in LA for a while, or go to the movies, he always had something to look forward to, and it gave him this zest to think about and us to talk about. So I feel, that's important to everyone, not just somebody that's disabled. So about that time, I decided to see the movie The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Have any of you ever seen that movie? Okay, so you know, it's a hard movie to watch. And a friend had recommended it. Actually, my 2 daughters went with me. I went because I thought maybe I would learn something, how I could help Don in his life if I went. So I went, and I did learn something very important, because the man in the movie had a stroke just like Don, and he was completely paralyzed. But the difference, or what I learned, they filmed the movie as if you were looking through his eyes. And so I left that movie, and I had a whole new perspective, because I was looking at the world the way Don was and thinking about how he was looking. And I realized if he were here right now, he'd be looking at all of you how he always did. It's just you would be looking at him differently. So it gave me an entire new perspective on people with disabilities and all that sort of thing. I also started to think about how important it is to be loved, and how important it still is to have a romance. And I know people always kind of wonder about that. But anyway, I thought, you know what? It's really important. So I decided to try something that we used to do all the time. So sort of a regular routine would be in the evening. I'd be in the bubble bath, and he'd be on the edge of the tub just talking to me. And we'd talk about our day, share what we did. So I thought, excuse me, I think I'm going to try to make that happen again. Chapter 18. One more roll in the hay. Okay, the scene wasn't as quiet as it used to be, but I had my husband all alone again in my private little sanctuary. I talked and I talked and I talked. He didn't take his eyes off of me as he eased my embarrassment with the charm of his schoolboy smile. I don't think he cared what I was talking about. He just seemed happy I had reinvented this sacred part of our relationship. Even in our own little world, I was still unsure of letting Don see me, but I stood up, arms stretched out as bubbles slid down my side. My added little hip movement brought a big smile to the surprised look on Don's face. "What do you think?" I asked with all the guts I could muster. I could almost hear him purr as he mouthed, "I love you." "Do you think I've gained any weight?" I stupidly asked. The slight hesitation before his answer was louder than an announcer at Dodger Stadium. Yes, he mouthed. How many pounds? What a dumb question. I immediately thought, 15. I mustn't have heard him right, so I repeated my question and put words in his mouth. 5? With a silly little smile and a slight shake of his head, he mouthed, no, 15. I pulled up my towel and with a wicked little laugh said, hey, you better think about what you say to me. I can unplug you at any time. I could hear him laughing hysterically with just the expression on his face. And what do you know? He was spot on. Caregiving is one of the most emotionally challenging things anyone can ever do. I understand the frustrations, the loneliness, the piercing sadness in one's heart. And I have a little tip for patients. So if you have any friends that are a patient, or maybe your caregivers want to tell the patient, or one of you might be a patient, there's 2 very important sentences or things to say. It means the world. Number 1 is, I love you. And number 2 is, thank you. That's all I ever needed to hear. So there's something I also want to share with you. Because of my husband's success, and many of you know he was very successful in his real estate business, Don and I were able to do things that most caregivers and patients aren't able to do. And for that very reason, after he passed away, I decided to start a foundation to help caregivers in need. Caregivers, they can't get out of their house. They can't do the things that I could. I have a question. Did anyone in here, or have any of you in here when you were young, did you see the TV show The Millionaire? Do you remember that? Okay, well, as I was a child, it was my favorite TV show. I used to sit in front of the family's black and white television, and I would watch that guy go up to the front door and think, oh my gosh, those people are so lucky. So I would wait for that doorbell. He never came, but I just thought, oh my God, he's got to come. So anyway, it's really one of the reasons why when I started my foundation that I wanted to surprise caregivers in need. So we find 2 or 3 caregivers a month and surprise them with meaningful support. Just a couple of examples are, there was a man last month who the room was too small for another bed. So he sits in a chair next to his wife day and night in a chair. So we bought him a lazy boy recliner so he can sit and sleep in the same place. Another person just recently, they didn't have heating, so we got them a heater for their bedroom. I would say my most favorite, and UCLA helps me, USC, and if, pass the word around different people and they vet the people. My most favorite, I was at the Venice Family Clinic. I'm sitting in there waiting for the caregiver, and an hour went by, and it didn't bother me because I know what it's like. Something's always going to happen, so you can't be in a rush. So I'm reading, and I look out the window, and there's this young man pushing a wheelchair with this lovely lady in it, and I thought, that must be the caregiver. So they come in, and he's a young guy, about 28. He was the sole caregiver for his mother. And so we're talking, and I asked him, so at the end of the month, how are you doing? How do you do the things you do? And he says, well, when I run out of money, I have a side job, and I deliver party things for a party rental company. So I scoop my mom up, and I put her in the front of the truck, and she goes with me. And so, I meet so many different people. Many, many times it's helping people with their rent or their utility bills, but there really are a lot of interesting stories, and I would say I'm not going to fix it, or the foundation is not going to fix their life, but they're going to feel that they aren't alone, and it's going to give them a little bit of respite that help to ease a bit of stress, both financially and emotionally. I have one final thought. At my age, 55 forever, I thought, what are you laughing about? Okay. I thought I'd have life all figured out and be breezing through. I've learned a lot, and I've learned it's not exactly like that for any of us. Life goes on, but it takes a lot of work. I read somewhere that the happiest people are the ones who push themselves out of their comfort zone. If you want a social life, you have to work at it. If you want to be happy, you have to work at it. Nothing just happens without a lot of work. I hope my story helps all of my readers find some kind of path to follow. My path taught me that today is merely a blink in time. As difficult as it is, life's worth living. In the deepest and saddest moments, somewhere there is a flower just blooming. I've had many challenging life experiences, and as I look back, I wouldn't change any of them. The joy of life is to be able to see the positives, no matter how bleak the moments are. Just work through them. I promise you, there really is a rainbow of happiness. Thank you all so much for coming and being here and supporting me. And now I hope you have some questions, because then, okay. Supposed to look casual. Okay. My kid's laughing. Okay. Yes.
Hi, I was really honored by your speech tonight, and I'm on the Newport Beach Library Foundation Board, and just wanted to comment, I would call myself a caregiver as well. My lady friend of 10 years she has stage 4 cancer, and I've been dealing with that for the last 2.5 years. But I must say that it's given me the greatest pleasure that I've had in the last 4 years, just because of her resilience, her ability to not only deal with what is, but also to see the positive side, to always see that there's another tomorrow, that things are going to get better, and if they don't, they don't. But she is a fighter, and she's a kick-ass kind of girl. So I just wanted to follow that up because it meant so much to me to be here tonight and also to celebrate her.
Oh, I love hearing that, and I'm so sorry about her.
Yeah.
But I will say, in my position, when my husband was still alive, I was more proud of him when he was ill than I ever
Right.
was hearing about the things he did. He was an amazing man, and it sounds like this woman is an amazing woman.
She is. Thank you.
So, yes.
I am caregiving for my 99-year-old mother-in-law, M-I-L.
Wow, she is wonderful then.
And
Just kidding.
one of the things that I would like to have your perspective on is, what did you learn about yourself as you went through this process that you never would have understood if you hadn't become a caregiver?
Well, one thing, when you read the book, you'll read that I was a caregiver a few times. I lost my mom when I was 18 to cancer, and I remember it vividly. I lost my dad to cancer at 24, and I lost a brother to aplastic anemia of the bone marrow at 25. So I had a few times that I was involved with caregiving, and it never gets easy. And I will say, one thing I learned through it, this is amazing because I'm just thinking about this, everyone was so different. I remember with my mom, it was, back in those days, you kind of hid everything and you kept saying, oh, you're going to be better. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you, just a little, chemo here, everything's going to be okay. And as it progressed with other family members, some people wanted to know everything, other people didn't. So I learned more that way, but I also would say I learned like I said, it's a blink in time. And I do remember when my husband was ill, as difficult as it was, and some days, and I wrote about my depression. I didn't tell my friends at the time, and people were surprised to hear it. But I have to tell you, one of the things that saved me was to sit there and think, this is a blink in time. I am going to wish that this had gone slower, if you can believe. So when you're in that position, keep thinking that it is a blink in time and sort of savor the good and the bad. So, yes?
Did they try and give you any kind of communication device to help you communicate with your husband?
Okay, the communication thing was really hard. And people never change. If you're ill, your personality is not going to change. So my husband was really used to, he wouldn't be using, he wouldn't be texting today. Let's just put it that way. He'd be asking someone to write the letter. And so it was funny because I could never get him to write a note to me because he was a terrible speller. And I'd say, Don, I will write it if you just copy it, everything. Or, I'll give you a dictionary. He wouldn't do it. So I used to tease him and say, can you believe that the rest of your life is now spelling? Because I devised a spelling board. And when it started out, when he was first blinking, he would have to blink letters. I had A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down the side. And he'd want to tell me something, and so I'd say, what line is it? And he could mouth then, and he'd mouth 1. Okay, A. It took forever, but then you know what someone's talking about. But then someone came to us, and I think it was Stephen Hawkins has this great, where they calibrate your eyes. And it's fascinating, because you look in the screen, and you stare at the red dots until they calibrate your eyes. And I used to say to Dawn, don't move. I want you to move, but right now, don't move, because we're trying to calibrate your eyes. So he'd look at it, and it was amazing, because he could go down to the alphabet, spell out a word, like, happy birthday, and then look down with his eyes, and it would say talk. And we had already programmed which type of person, a person from England, a man, a woman, or whatever. So one day his brother was coming to visit and kind of got it all pre-organized. Like, what do you think you want to talk to your brother about? I thought of what he'd want to say. So how about, hi, Ed, how have you been doing? And I remember that was wrong because he told me, he mouthed to me, no, how have you been? Or it was something I said wrong, so we had to get that perfect. Then, how's your daughter? Have you been on your boat lately? So his brother comes in the house, and I have him sit down, and I said, Ed, we have a surprise for you. Don's going to talk to you today. So he sits down, and sure enough, Don's looking at each one of those squares, and the voice comes out. Hi, Ed, how have you been? And Ed's like, well, Don, I've been great. Have you finished that remodel yet? Well, actually, anyway, so they were able to talk in a way, but the system didn't work for us because it was exhausting, and he was older, and so I tried to use it just to see what it was like. I was exhausted, and he really, really wanted to walk again. That was the most, he didn't care if he talked. His number one, he wanted to walk because he just wanted to get out of that bed and get out of there. So anyway, for some people, I think it would be fantastic, and I'm sure it's a lot better now. So. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you so much for, I would say, unique sense of humor and those kind of situation. It's just probably reflection of depths of your soul. Forgive me, I'm a religious person. Can you please answer, when you experienced depression, did you struggle with nightmares of things that would horrify you through the night, interfere with your sleep regimen, kind of like because this kind of care requires enormous amount of strength and capacity to go through the stress in a long period of time. And second part of the same question, those, if it were nightmares and difficulties to sleep and deal through depressive kind of period, when you drive, did you drive yourself? Did it impact you or not? Thank you.
Okay, so this is a test on my memory, if I can remember all the questions. When I became depressed, well, first of all, I never got a night's sleep because I slept with my husband. We had 2 hospital beds next to each other, which was perfect because when he went down, I could go down. When he went up, I could go down or up. And every 2 hours, because he was paralyzed, he had to be rotated because it was really dangerous getting, and he did get bed sores. As much as we did, he still did. And that's why Christopher Reeves died, by the way, because a bed sore got infected. So every 2 hours I got up to help turn him. We had someone in the house and we did it together. So for 6.5 years, I never did get a full night's sleep. So I never had a chance to have a nightmare. But you know, it was exhausting, and I for sure was, what's the word, sleep deprived. And it felt, because our room was an ICU room. We had everything. And I mean, sometimes I felt like I was in a little room with a light bulb over me, because lights were on, people were there, and for 6.5 years I never slept alone. There was always someone there coming in and out of the room. But I got used to that. It became like a little fraternity, or not fraternity, sorority. There were guys that worked there, and that was embarrassing too, because, oh God, now I'm saying all this stuff. I used to wear nightgowns when I went to sleep, and all of a sudden there's a man in the room all night long because he's a respiratory therapist. So I remember the first night I thought, oh my God, I don't even have pajamas. I'm going to have to sleep in my sweats. And back then, I didn't even have a bed because I always thought he was going to get better. I had no idea what a stroke was like. I thought, well, why get a bed? I got a hospital bed for him. So for the first 9 months, I slept in a sleeping bag on a air mattress, which was actually pretty comfortable. But anyway, I finally figured out I needed to get a bed. Oh, I drove myself. I was never in an accident, but I did, I can't believe it. I did drive myself, and I was sleep deprived, yes. No, I didn't have any problem with that. I was just regular old me, and I didn't drive that far anyway, so I was just... Thank you, Sheila. Okay. Oh, no, I'm not going to. Okay. Yes. Yes, thank you. Karen. Hi.
Kathi, thank you so much for tonight. And I also have, a story which Kathi knows. And we just on Sunday celebrated 1 year ago, my 57-year-old husband of 1 year had a pretty devastating stroke, and he's partially paralyzed and has aphasia. So it's not the walking and no talking either. So, but my question is, and we've met a couple times, and I'm so grateful to, even when you said, when we met and you mentioned it today, make sure that they say thank you and I love you, which he doesn't, but I make him say it. Because it is important. You're doing so much. And I think also he just, with his aphasia, he doesn't know how to say it. He doesn't realize how important it is, but I make him say it anyway because it's so important. My question is, and I, after only being married a year, it's the family. So I've been with him this whole year, day and night, at the hospital every single night. But now the family doesn't quite get it, and they're wanting to make decisions to bring him to Denver, which means I go to Denver, or what happens? So my question is, I'm his loving wife, taking care of him, but yet now the family's starting to get involved with making decisions for him. And how did you deal with that, or did you have to?
You know, I didn't have to deal with that because everyone lives here. There's a big family.
Yeah.
I never had a problem with decisions. As the wife, I was always asked, but the doctors always asked me first, so I never had that problem. I talked to Dawn's family, and I talked to my family, and we talked about things, and just when you asked me about the talking device and all that sort of thing, we all talked about it. Everyone brought things in. So your situation is unique to me. I mean, for me, I didn't have that situation. That would be really frustrating. I feel for you there. And we met kind of as a fluke through different situations or people that introduced us, and we met and had dinner, and we've talked many times, and it's just, I mean, when I look back, I can't believe I actually did all the things I did, and I got through it, and, you know, I understand it, and it's very, very hard to meet people like you that are there right now. So I might have to go over and talk to your husband and just tell him he better say I love you and thank you. I think so, because you sometimes have to. No, that's true. That's for sure. So.
I think there were some over on this side of the room.
And see, I had communication because I could read Don's lips. And so that helped. It was very hard to read his lips, but I knew what he was talking about, and we could communicate. I will share with you, this is terrible, but the first speech therapist that came in, and this was at Hogue, and it was an older woman. She was like church lady, you know what I mean, with the little short hair and the little, like on Saturday Night Live, they call it church lady. Anyway, just what you would kind of think of, and you're not ever going to say anything bad in front of her. And so anyway, the lady comes in, and she's trying to get Don to say, you know, A, B, whatever it is. And he kept mouthing something, and I knew what he was saying. And the lady finally said, "What is he saying?" I said, "I'm really sorry, but he's saying asshole." And she was so upset, and I said, "He doesn't usually talk like that, but think about it. If you were in his situation, how easy it is to say that." And so it was like his first word. Okay, so you do have to have a little bit of humor when you're going through it, but that's what he would say, and we all laughed about it, and then she started laughing about it, and she thought it was really cute. So anyway, so somewhere over there had a question. Okay.
Right here?
My kids are going to kill me for telling that story, but anyway.
Kathi, remarkable talk. Thank you for being open and sharing.
Thank you.
This happened suddenly, and you had, you know, a pretty, I think, not hectic, but active life with a lot of freedoms, and that all went away immediately. How did you wrap your head around organizing for the new structure, the new necessities, and what you had to do overnight?
So what I had to do for Dawn to have a hospital at the house,
or organized everything and planned it and did it.
Well, it didn't happen overnight because he was in the hospital for 3 months. And then one day, the head doctor in the ICU unit at UCLA, in the neurological ICU unit, came to me and he said, "Mrs. Koll, your husband has to leave because this is not a, what do you call it, a rehab hospital." And then I started looking around. Well, not many places take someone on a respirator. It was really hard, and I think there were 2. And I went to them, and it was very depressing, and I just didn't know how we were going to do it. And so I kind of talked to him, and he kept saying he wanted to go home. And the doctor said there is no way that he can come home. He won't live a week. And so we had a big meeting with all the doctors. I had no idea there were going to be so many people in the room. And of course, I burst out crying, and they're pushing Kleenexes down the table. And I said, "My husband wants to go home." And 2 of the doctors said, okay. It kind of had to be a 3-doctor vote. And the one said, there's no way. And he said, does he understand he might not live if he comes home? And I said, well, why don't we just go talk to him and you can ask him and let him make the decision. So that's what we did. And he absolutely wanted to go home. And he said he didn't care what happened. He wanted to go home. So I had been there for 3 months and I knew who were all the nurses I liked and everybody I liked. So one by one, I asked people on their off days if they'd want to come work at our house. And I got different ones that helped me in the beginning to figure out what kind of supplies we needed, because it was huge putting this hospital together. So we were able to do it. And one of my selling features was, see, we have a swimming pool. So when you have like your hour break, you can sit by our pool. Well, there was never an hour break, and no one was going to come and sit by my pool. But I was really naive, and I just thought it was a good selling point. So, yes. Okay, the question is the visit from President Bush. Yeah, that was amazing. Well, I was at a dinner, and the person next to me was telling me that President Bush was going to be in Orange County, like on Wednesday. This was like on a Monday. And I said, oh, well, could you just say to him if he'd like to come by and say hello to Don, because Don knew him. I'm sure he would love to see him. Well, never knowing, I didn't think that was really going to happen. Anyway, the next day I get a phone call, and it's the Secret Service, and they want to come check the house out because President Bush would like to come by and say hello to Don. So I said, wow, okay. So they come over. And they're all over the place. They've got to check out everything. And I said, why are you checking everything out? I mean, he's his friend. He wants to come over to our house. And no, we have to do this. We have to go into your room. And I said, well, I've decided this is going to be a surprise. I don't want my husband to know. So what is he going to think about you coming in our room in a suit? So can you take your jacket off? Because I'm going to tell him that you are the president of the air conditioning repair company. And the guy says, well, how are we going to explain my gun? And I said, oh, okay, that's a problem. So anyway, the guy was really nice, and he said, okay, I don't have to go in your room. So it came time, and Don was up in the family room, and I told him that a friend was coming to visit. So he was kind of guessing, an old friend, who it could be. And then one of the Secret Service popped up through the window, and he was giving me 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, how many minutes would be. And all of a sudden, it was down to 1 minute, and I said, oh, I'll be right back. I think I hear the doorbell ringing. I think your friend's here. So I went out in the alley, and here comes this motorcade. It was unbelievable on Balboa Island. And President Bush jumped out of the car, and I said, this is supposed to be a surprise. I mean, everyone around here is going to know you're here now, just to kind of make a joke. And he says, so is it still a surprise? I go, oh, it's still a surprise. The only other time I surprised him is when I got Cindy Crawford to come over to the house, and that's another story. So he says, oh, I'm going home. He's never going to want to see me. I go, no, please don't go. Please don't go. So he came in, and he put his hand on Don's shoulder and squeezed it because Don could feel everything. He couldn't move, but he could feel things, which was also hard sometimes because he would get in tremendous pain. But anyway, he came around him and he said, hey, buddy, how you doing? And Don looked at him and said, hello, Mr. President. He mouthed it. And the president sat down, and he was supposed to be there for 5 minutes, and he stayed 45 minutes, and they talked back and forth. And I finally said, how do you know what he's talking about? And he said, well, because I can read his lips. I said, oh, you're not leaving. You have a new job. It was so great. So anyway, I was a little nervous because I thought Don would all of a sudden think he was an imposter. So anyway, he leaves. And Don looked at me and mouthed, where did you find him? So anyway, that was really fun. It was fun to be able to surprise him. That was fun. Yeah, I'm getting really dry. Any more questions? Yes. Yes.
Okay, this is my friend Eddie. I'm taking sign language. I'm obviously not very good at it. So Eddie would would like to know, what made you, oh, thank you very much.
Wait, you're taking sign,
I'm deaf in one ear, so I'm taking sign language.
okay.
And
And this
so
was in your
this-
way. Okay, so
Say
you probably
what?
couldn't, this podium is.
Oh, that's fine. Oh,
Okay.
I can hear. Eddie can't hear, though, but he can
Okay.
read lips. So Eddie wanted to know, what made you write this book, and how long did it take you to write the book? But he's better if he can read your lips. Is that okay?
Okay, no, okay.
Can you read it?
And I know that reading lips is difficult because many times when I went through this with my husband, many words, they sound different, but when you're mouthing them, the words are different, but they, when you're reading someone's lips, it could be two different words that just looks the same. So anyway, I don't know if I explained that right. Oh, okay. So the reason I decided to write the book was because people had mentioned it to me before, but I was at lunch. Are you all familiar with Susan G. Komen for the cure for breast cancer? Well, I know the girl, Nancy Brinker, who started Susan G. Komen for the cure for her sister and when she died of breast cancer. So I was having lunch with her, and she said, Kathi, I wrote a book about my sister. I think you would help a lot of people if you wrote a book about your husband and the life of a caregiver. And so, I don't know, I thought a lot of people have said that, where to start, how do I do this? And she said, I'd really like for you to speak to my editor. And so I thought, I actually got butterflies in my stomach, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to talk to an editor. It sounded so scary. So anyway, I called this person, and we had a wonderful conversation. I think at first she thought, oh, this is just going to be another caregiving story. But 3 months earlier, the Academy Awards have been out, and my brother, who also passed away, there's a whole story in the book about who he was engaged to, and their story was part of the Academy Awards. So when I brought it up to her, she said, wait, I want to hear about this. I think you have more of a story. And she asked me, she said, you know, I also am a ghostwriter. Do you want me to write this story? And I said, oh, well, I mean, 4 years later, I thought, why didn't I do that? But anyway, I said, no, I want to write the story. So she said, well, I'm going to send you a few assignments because I want to see how your writing is. So I did. I wrote a couple things, and she said, yeah, I'll take you on. So I spent 4 years writing it, and the reason I spent 4 years writing it was because, number one, I was in no hurry. I would put the pen down every once in a while, and some things I couldn't write about for a long time because they were so sad. It was really hard for me, and so some things, it was 2 years before I could write them. So it turned out to be very, very cathartic, and I will say I have a wonderful person in my life, Gary Hunt, and he's someone I've known for 40 years. He was a friend of my husband's. And when you ask about how long it took to write the book, I stopped after about 3 years because I thought, it's really hard. I have this wonderful person in my life now. How can I write about my past? And he said, Kathi, I want you to write this book. I want you to finish the book, and I want to read it. But I'm going to read it by myself with 3 bottles of wine. So that's why it took so long, and Gary had a lot to do with me finishing it. Thank you. So, any more questions? Well, thank you all so much, and
Thank you all for being here. Kathi, thank you so much for sharing your story. If you did not get an opportunity, books are available for purchase, and Kathi can sign it for you as well. Thank you all for being here.